Over the last 20 years, I've worked to build a global organization that tries to speak truth to power. We operate in over 100 countries. In more than 40 of those countries, my colleagues, my friends, face daily personal threats. Their offices may be bombed, they may be imprisoned, they face many personal threats and they soldier on. They do so because we will win this fight against corruption. In a book that I've written that comes out very soon called Waging War on Corruption, I trace a journey from the fall of the Berlin Wall to the rise of the Arab Spring. And fundamentally, it is an optimistic story. But let me put this in context this evening. My friend Ngozi, the finance minister of Nigeria, once told the story of a young lady in Nigeria called Rose. Ngozi said, Rose came from a poor rural family. She couldn't purchase some class notes at university, and as a result, her professor started to give her low grades. The professor then asked for other favors, which she refused, and soon Rose was thrown out of the university. Ngozi thought at first that this was an isolated case, but she did some research. And she found, to her absolute horror, that this kind of corruption is pervasive, that the rot had set in much of education in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, the crimes of corruption are not abstract issues. Every time an official steals from the public purse, somebody suffers. Every time an official is a villain, then there is a victim. And there are millions of young people like Rose. Transparency International seeks to track perceptions of corruption, the level of corruption, and to understand corruption. The scale of the current problem is enormous. At the end of 2011, Transparency International's Global Corruption Barometer did a global survey of over 100,000 people in 30 countries. We found that of all the people surveyed, 1 in 4 said that they had paid a bribe for public services in the previous year. They had paid bribes for health care. They had paid bribes for education. And most of all, they found, according to the survey, that they paid bribes to get along with the police. Since 1995, we have tracked perceptions of corruption across the world in what we have called our Corruption Perception Index. We look at corruption in 183 countries. The results are quite terrible. In the great majority of those countries, we find that the level of perceived corruption, the abuse of power by government officials for their personal gain, is very high indeed. The countries that rank absolutely worst of all are Venezuela, Haiti, Iraq, Sudan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Myanmar, North Korea, and absolutely at the bottom, Somalia. The drivers of corruption are greed, arrogance, and opportunity. Opportunity is enhanced by secrecy. Corruption is not confined to any particular culture. The mixture of money and politics is toxic everywhere. And in most countries, there is a sense that deals are done constantly with government officials in ways that obviously steal from the public. My own country, the United States, is not immune. When the Supreme Court, in the Citizens United case decision, struck down the ban on corporate expenditure to influence federal elections, 5 justices, and I'm very proud to say that I'm on this panel with Justice Breyer, who voted the right way, but 5 justices radically changed our political system. Free speech is for sale in the United States to smear politicians who seek to serve the public, to distort public perceptions. The 2012 election, now in process, will involve a record spending of well over $2 billion. A lot of that money will come from people who can remain anonymous, and you can bet that they will seek something in return for their large contributions. Nevertheless, I'm confident that in the US and in many other countries, we will seek to overturn the corruption that is pervasive. More generally, we find that where there are bribe takers, there are, of course, bribe payers. And the scales of the fortunes of corrupt leaders is something that we are bringing to light more and more, together with very courageous investigative journalists. Ladies and gentlemen, the law is the key to changing things. The success of efforts to curb corruption on a sustainable basis, nationally and internationally, will depend on the existence of strong and independent legal systems. Transparency International has fought for 20 years for many, many laws in many countries. Now is the challenge of enforcing the law. Ladies and gentlemen, we will win because there is a new phenomenon. We saw it in the Arab Spring. We see it through social media. We see that people are fighting for their personal dignity, they're overcoming fear, and they are standing up. They are standing up to join a cause for anti-corruption, for human rights, for democracy, and for the rule of law. Finally, let me just remind you of a quote that was used at the Nobel Prize Award at the end of last year. It comes from James Baldwin. James Baldwin said that we should all stand on the right side of history. Ladies and gentlemen, the right side of history is fighting corruption, and I hope you stand with us. Thank you.